This has massive implications for the Houston Texans as they gear up for their Week 2 matchup with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers after a devastating loss to the Los Angeles Rams this past Sunday. And we're going to give you 4 of the key things that they have to do in order to come out with their first win of the 2025 NFL season. Hello, everybody. I'm your host, Donovan Ricondo for Texans Digest, where we break down the latest news, rumors, and updates regarding your favorite H-Town team. And if you have not yet subscribed and want to stay in the loop for all your Texans content, this is the channel for you. But we're going to get straight into what we're talking about for today, and that is this: the 4 Texans keys to victory versus the Buccaneers on Monday Night Football. That's right, we are in prime time Monday night. Big game with the Buccaneers, who won their first week matchup in a very exciting game. Baker Mayfield is indeed back, and he is as good as he was last year. It's going to be a very intense battle, especially at the quarterback position. But what do the Houston Texans need to do in order to win that game? And so we're going to break down what those things are. And the very first thing that I'm going to mention, something that I've been wanting to mention for quite some time and get some thoughts off my chest, is Nico Collins' involvement. He only had 3 catches for 25 yards in the Week 1 matchup against the Rams, and that is not typical for the wide receiver who was in the lead for passing yards last season up until he got hurt in whatever week it was, right? He got hurt, and Nico Collins needs to find some way to get more involved into the offense. They're not necessarily him, but the coaching staff calling the plays and making sure that he is used as the best wide receiver, because quite frankly, he is the best wide receiver. I'm going to take you to what DeMeco Ryan said after the loss about Nico Collins' involvement, saying, quote, "Of course, we want to get the ball to Nico. He's one of our best players, but offensively, when you go back to the game on Sunday, we have so many plays where we're kind of playing behind the sticks and we're not doing things that we're trained to do. We're not doing things conducive to staying on track and being able to run our defense in that type of fashion. It's going to be hard to get the ball to a certain player here or there. 2nd and 18, 2nd and 10, 3rd and long. That's not where you want to be to operate as an offense." And to his credit, he is right. Obviously, no offense wants to operate in those long down and distance situations. But at the same time, giving the ball to Nico Collins and what would be a sort of screen pass or some sort of drawn up play would be a huge beneficial thing for him, just to be more involved. But I understand what DeMeco Ryan is saying. They were not in the best spot offensively throughout that Los Angeles Rams game, and it wasn't exactly, you could tell they weren't running their bread and butters, and they were not running exactly plays that were things that they probably practiced the most on. Penalties was a result of that, sacks, offensive line, whatever you want to call it. And the offense couldn't quite find a groove. They were able to find a groove towards the end there before the Ogunbowale fumble, but at the same time, not where the Texans want to be. So this is a very big thing to have to get right on Monday Night Football. You have an extra day to kind of get prepared and get mentally right. And so Nico Collins, if we can somehow get him more involved, I think is going to be the best thing for this team. Obviously, again, this isn't anything secretive. It's a very obvious thing that does need to happen for this team. And the second thing, key to victory, is better stability for C.J. Stroud. The offensive line was not very good this past Sunday. It was kind of typical of what we saw last year, giving up 3 sacks. We saw a lot of injuries with the offensive line, which was not very, very great to watch, and I wonder what is going to happen in this second week. That is my biggest concern right now. One, C.J. Stroud's health, and also the offensive line, how healthy they are going to be week 2, right? Like, what are we going to look like? What is this whole thing going to be? The Texans quarterback was pressured. C.J. Stroud was pressured on 41% of his passes per next-gen stats and was sacked 3 times for 31 yards, all while facing a challenging defensive front in L.A. and hosting an offensive line that would have 200 starters to finish the day. This week, the Texans will be up against another challenge in the trenches in the form of matching up with Bucs star defender Vita Vea, while also dealing with the absence of center Jake Andrews and potentially guard Ed Ingram, who was ruled out ahead of Week 1's kickoff. And so, to be as blunt as possible, I don't expect our offensive line to have a great game in Week 2. I expect them to fully be what we were last week. I expect sacks. I expect at least 3. It hurts me to say that, but just looking at the matchup and looking at the health of the Texans and how great of a D-line the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have, I can almost assure that at least 3 sacks will happen on C.J. Stroud. during that matchup. It's a whether if not, how can we overcome those sacks and have a good enough offensive line to pull out the W? That would be the biggest question. But I don't expect the offensive line to have a great day. It hurts to say, but I just think that is the reality of where this team is at right now. Things can change, things can progress, things can develop. But as of right now, the way we played last week and what we're going up against this week, I just don't see it happening for the Texans to kind of flip that script immediately, especially when you're dealing with some of the guys that you had as your starters, and now they're going to be out for this week 2 matchup potentially. Now, the third key to victory is exposing the Bucs' biggest weakness. You're probably wondering, what is that for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? I am not a fan. I do not watch. What is going on with them? Well, looking to the other side of the ball, the Bucs will be dealing with a major loss on their offensive line in the form of left tackle Tristan Wirfs, who's set to be out for week 2 as he continues to rehab from an off-season knee injury. Now, what does this mean for the Texans? The same advantage the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have on us is an advantage we have on them against their offensive line, as we can tell that the Houston Texans are going to take advantage of this. They already have a stacked defensive line. We do with Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter, both solid caliber players. And so to be able to attack that, whoever is backing up that starting offensive lineman for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, to attack that and to be able to get some sacks against Baker Mayfield is going to be huge for this game in order to help kind of balance out what's happening on our side. Now, the only concern is Baker Mayfield. He is a runner. He is someone that is going to be able to evade those types of things and is a very, very talented quarterback. And so I can fully see that being the counter to what our D-line can do. And so it's a very kind of back and forth, push and pull kind of relationship there. But at the same time, can this D-line overwhelm the O-line from Tampa Bay? That is going to be a big question on Monday night. And the last key to victory for the Houston Texans, as they probably saw just a moment ago, is making sure that their air attack is in check. Yes, that coincides with the D-line and making sure that we can kind of apply some pressure on Mayfield's dropbacks, but at the same time, they have some studs at the wide receiver position. They have Mike Evans, who has had a 1,000-yard season for the past, I want to say, 8 years, I believe, was able to keep that going last year, and rookie Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State, who is a solid guy who's going to be great in this league. I feel that there's going to be no doubt about that. Puka Nacua last week had 130 yards in a 10-reception performance, which is not great when you're the Texans secondary. And so having to deal with this new wide receiver matchup with these two guys is something that's not really, in favor of the Houston Texans, who went off to not a great start last week. It starts with a rebound night from star cornerback Derek Stingley Jr., who suffered in week 1 with a 34.3 coverage grade on the day, a 50.0 tackling grade, also suffering a back injury midway through the first quarter versus the Rams that he would end up returning from, but likely didn't make his day any easier. CJ Gardner-Johnson will also be a prime candidate to bounce back in Houston's home opener, who has a full week of healthy practice to get to form and be a key playmaker for the team. And so this is kind of the situation that we are at with the Houston Texans. Those 4 things, making sure that C.J. Stroud is able to find Nico Collins, getting him involved will be the biggest thing for this offense. He's the one consistent thing that we had last year, besides the times he was out of play. But to have him to be in that, to be that consistent big wide receiver, the way that other wide receivers are to their teams, the way Puka is to the Rams, the way CeeDee Lamb is to the Cowboys, all those things, to have our guy Nico Collins get more involved is going to be huge for this Monday night game, as well as making sure that our offensive line is okay, to make sure that our defensive line can apply some pressure and make sure that Baker Mayfield does not throw for 300 yards or have himself a crazy game in prime time on ESPN Monday night. And so those are the things that we have to look out for this game. And let me know in the comments if there's any other things that you want to mention about how competitive or what kind of things that I missed on that is going to be huge in determining the winner of this game. I am not a fan of starting off 0-2. That is going to be a big uphill climb for the first 2 weeks and trying to get right. Of course, we have divisional opponents the next 2 weeks after this, and so we're trying to avoid 0-2 as much as possible. These were going to be tough games. We knew that going in, that they were going to be very difficult games to try to win, but they are winnable games. Don't get me wrong. The Texans can win these games. We didn't see it with the Rams, but hopefully we can see it with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Monday night. And with that, I'm your host, Donovan Ricondo. We'll see you on the next one of Texans Digest. And as always, if you want to stay in the loop and up to date on your favorite NFL team, the Houston Texans, this is the channel for you. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We'll see you.